When it comes to the topic of cursed movies, you really have to be specific sometimes on if you mean flicks that will give you nightmares, scare you a little, are awfully made, or genuinely seem to have had some sort of curse on set. Don't worry folks, I'm not here to play any tricks today. We're only going to be talking about sets most folks wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Question for you all, what's your favorite cursed, aka so bad but you love it type movie? Personally, it'll always be I Kissed a Vampire for me, so let me know your answer in the comments and let's talk about some demonic activity together, shall we? Rosemary's Baby is an iconic movie in the world of horror films, and boy oh boy was this thing cursed. The first unlucky soul was Komeda. Details of his death are still scarce, but director Roman Polanski told it this way. In autumn of 1968, then 37-year-old was roughhousing at a party when he fell off a rocky escarpment and onto a 4-month coma. The very same affliction Levin's witches used to kill Rosemary's suspicious friends in the book that the movie was based off of. Komeda never regained consciousness and died in Poland the following year. In April of 1969, producer William Castle, sick with worry from the hate mail he was constantly receiving, was suddenly stricken with severe kidney stones. While delirious in the hospital, he hallucinated scenes from the film and was said to have yelled, "Rosemary, for God's sake, drop the kitchen utensil that I can't say." Castle recovered, just barely, and never made a Hollywood hit ever again. Then there's Polanski's fate, told and retold into legend even by him. So he had relocated to California alongside his new girlfriend, actress Sharon Tate, who was fresh off her first movie role as a witch in Eye of the Devil, just before filming began. She had really tried to get the lead role in Rosemary's Baby, but Paramount wanted Mia Farrow. Tate instead loitered on the set, appearing uncredited like a ghost in the background of Rosemary's young people only party scene, and say some, becoming increasingly obsessed with the occult. Many years later, a friend quoted her in print as having said, "The devil is beautiful. Most people think he's ugly, but he's not." So Polanski last saw Tate, by then his wife and very pregnant, in July of 1969, noting in his autobiography a grotesque thought he had at the time, "You will never see her again," he wrote. Tate was brutally killed on August 8th by the Manson family, as was, well, her unborn son, all while Rosemary's Baby still lingered in theaters. Unable to make sense of such a tragedy, and captivated by the stories of the Manson family, the public took to Satan and curses as the only explanation. Internet fanatics say, like Guy Woodhouse, Polanski made his young wife a sacrifice for his still untouchable status in Hollywood and beyond. Others maintain the Manson killings were a mere moment in a grand satanic conspiracy scored by the Beatles. The White Album was written largely at a meditation that had Mia Farrow in attendance, and the song title, Helter Skelter, albeit misspelled, was scrawled in human fluids at the crime scene. And a dozen years later, Lennon was assassinated across the street from the Dakota, the landmark where Rosemary's Baby was filmed. So, if Rosemary's Baby is actually cursed, how did the original author, Ira Levin, dodge his fate? He didn't. Well, he never fell from a cliff to his dramatic demise, he suffered a more fitting kind of poetic justice. First, his marriage crumbled, with the divorce finalizing in 1968, and he never rode the Rosemary's Baby wave into Hollywood. Perhaps a blessing in disguise, but he certainly got the fame he was looking for. Catholics in particular bombarded him with ongoing criticism, as did the Catholic Church, which very publicly slapped a C rating, aka condemned, onto the film for its mockery of religious persons and practices. Now, he didn't really believe in witches or curses, and he said over and over again, but fear grew in him just the same. On a 1980 episode of The Dick Cavett Show, appearing alongside a gregarious Stephen King, Levin sits quiet, pensive, and insecure. "I don't recall being scared at all," he said, of his early horror inspirations, but now I'm terrified. Many believe the set of the original Poltergeist trilogy, which came out in the 1980s, was cursed, attributing to the long string of unfortunate circumstances that followed the cast and crew to the use of real human skeletons in the first film. Neither the crew nor Jo Beth Williams, who was literally inside the pool with them, knew the skeletons were real and not in fact just props. Turns out at the time, making fake skeletons that looked photorealistic was a lot more expensive than buying real cadavers. Technically, I already knew that fact, since many of the original skeletons on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland were also real cadavers that were donated from UCLA. Those skeletons of the 1950s and 60s they weren't it. Thankfully, over time, Imagineers' ability to sculpt and render more realistic bones, coupled with the need for maintenance repairs and decay, resulted in the removal of the skeletons, minus one skull. Proper burials were reportedly given each time a skeleton was removed from the ride. Yay! Sorry, I know, back on topic we go. Before the final Poltergeist film was released, 4 cast members passed away, including the young girl who played Carol Ann. A 5th was brutally killed over a decade later, and 1 more narrowly escaped their own death. So, how did this all go down? So the same year that the first movie came out, Dominique Dunn, the 22-year-old who played Dana, was hand necklaced in her driveway by an awful ex. Julian Beck, who played Kane, died of cancer before the second film's release, and Will Sampson, who played Taylor, died at only 53 from post-operative kidney failure. Heather passed away before hitting her teenage years, before the final final film hit the big screen from a severe bowel obstruction. And in 2009, Lou Perryman, who played Pugsley, was killed with an axe in his home by an ex-con who wanted to steal his car. Richard Lawson, who played Ryan, was aboard US Air Flight 405, which crashed after takeoff. Over half the plane's passengers were killed by the crash, but Richard fortunately survived. While filming the first movie, one of the young stars was almost hand-necklaced by a possessed clown doll. In the freak accident, the mechanical clown gripped the boy's neck so tight he started to yell that he couldn't breathe and his face turned blue. Steven Spielberg had to jump in and pry the clown's hands off his neck and save his life. While one technically can't attest all these tragedies to the set's curse, there's a lot of death and destruction surrounding this whole film. So much so that one cast member did an exorcism of the second movie's set, trying to ease people's nerves. Yeah, I'm calling it cursed. I know a spade. I know a curse when I see one. I can call a spade a spade. The Crow is a dark superhero film that was released in theaters in 1994, and during its time, it was well received and has since garnered a strong cult following. The flick is based on a comic book written by James O'Barr by the same name and stars Brandon Lee as Eric Draven, a rock musician who is brought back to life to avenge the death of his fiancée. Critics praise the film for its style and emotional depth, and rightfully so. From the very beginning of the filming process, filmmakers showed up on set to a voicemail message that said that bad things would happen if they made the movie, and before long, the message was right. On the first day of production, an electrician was backing up a cherry picker truck and hit the high-tension wire on the power lines above him. He was electrocuted and caught on fire. Everybody rushed him to the hospital where he was treated for second and third degree burns, and even though he survived, his ears had to be removed. After that, a hurricane destroyed the Crow's backlot set, and from there, rumors of the curse began to spread through the media. Now, some folks thought the curse was attributed to Brandon Lee, whose father Bruce Lee had died under mysterious circumstances, thought to be part of a family curse. No matter what you believed though, it was an on-set accident involving Brandon Lee that cemented The Crow as one of the most cursed films in history. While filming a scene where Brandon Lee walks into a room to discover his fiancée is being harmed, a character named Fun Boy fires an explosive at him. Unfortunately, nobody noticed or recognized that a dummy round had become lodged in the barrel of the device being used. It was then loaded with blank rounds that would simulate real explosives. However, these rounds were enough to force the cartridge that was lodged in the barrel to fire at nearly the same velocity as a real round. It struck Lee and he later died at the hospital. In order to finish the film, producers rewrote parts of the script and had to cut the skull cowboy character completely, as nothing had been filmed with him yet. A curse. As if I was going to talk about possessed sets today without mentioning The Conjuring. Just as it's not a typical horror film, the inspiration for The Conjuring was also not the traditional story. Most fans of the horror universe know that it's based off of the real-life case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the husband and wife paranormal investigative team that we very much love around here. I've talked about them too many times to count. The writers, directors, and producers on The Conjuring and its sequels consulted extensively with the real-life Lorraine Warren until her death in 2019. What's fascinating is that this story in particular, out of all their cases, had a profound effect on the Warrens themselves. The late Ed Warren insisted to producer Tony DeRosa Grund that the first film made explicitly about his and his wife's investigations be based on the Perron case. The actors who played the Warrens were strongly affected by both the Perron case and its dramatization, just like their real-life counterparts, and not just because it spawned a successful film franchise whose universe is still growing today. Vera Farmiga, for example, who played Lorraine Warren, found herself mysteriously and repeatedly waking up between 3 and 4 in the morning on set. Yeah, the witching hour. Don't worry, it gets even creepier than that. In this particular film, the specific time window in which the witch character died was during said witching hour. Vera was so shaken by the experience that it was she who pointed out to the director the uncanniness of this connection, and her sleep troubles persisted even after the movie wrapped. In addition to sleep disturbances, Vera also dealt with mysterious claw marks that seemed to follow her wherever she went, even transcending both physical and digital barriers. Sadly, these tend to be kind of commonplace with possessed and cursed things. The first time she encountered a set of the 3 mysterious claw marks, they appeared on her computer screen, an interesting choice for a spirit to reveal itself. She had been working on her laptop and then closed it normally to take a phone call about being in The Conjuring, a phone call in which she expressed both her interest in the project and her desire to have Patrick Wilson play the part of her husband, saying that if he was in, she was in. So when she opened her laptop again, she found 3 diagonal digital claw marks descending from right to left. Later on set, she discovered 3 claw marks, but this time they cropped up much closer to home. They were now on her thigh. Thankfully, that was the last time they showed up, but still. Speaking of modeling marks, Joey King, the actress playing Christine, one of the 5 Perron daughters, also apparently ended up covered in strange bruises after just a couple of weeks of shooting, despite not being involved in any of her character's stunts. And she's never had a bruising problem before or since. When the real real Perron family visited the set of the film, one of the original Perron girls told co-writer Chad Hayes with conviction that she had a feeling something bad was going to happen that day. And she was right. To the shock of production and family alike, her now elderly mother fell and broke her hip so seriously that they had to operate and replace it, well, ASAP. Writer Carrie Hayes actually had to confide in the real Lorraine Warren on the Conjuring set about something he was going through, something Lorraine seemed to think was connected to the fact that he was spending his days on set and away from home. While Hayes was away, his wife would find mysterious water formations appearing around his house without any kind of explanation. So at first he thought his elderly dog was to blame, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna tell my wife, take the dog out. But the wife was like, no, we took the dog out. And the water wasn't smelling at all, even though it needed 3 huge beach towels to clean it up. Finally, Lorraine was like, you're dealing with a water poltergeist. She informed him that spirits often reveal themselves more when men are away and women are home alone and defenseless. So wives and mothers often encounter more of the supernatural. Well, stay at home mothers. Additionally, a water poltergeist feeds off of angst, which is why the water formations always appeared after a spat happened in the household. Once Hayes understood the presence though, he was able to get to the root of the situation and get rid of it. But still, no thank you. Alrighty, how about we end today with a set that was only mildly cursed? Another flick that was based off of the investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren, Insidious, was a set where most people felt uneasy and could not shake off generally negative energy. In addition, the cast continually heard a strange buzzing noise from various empty rooms and around the set when there was nobody there. These unexplained events followed through to the sequel, released in 2013 as Insidious Chapter 2. Cast and crew working in the hospital reported unexplainable creepy accidents, including a sudden unshakable feeling of queasiness the moment they stepped on set, and an unseen bell from an abandoned level of the building ringing every few moments. And that brings us to the end of our time, and I have half a mind to bring a bottle of holy water with me next time I step on a set. That is, if I can handle it without burning myself. I've been Alexa, your resident ooky spooky girly, and if you enjoyed my ramblings today, could you help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing if you aren't already, hit the bell for more cursed movie history from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.